I'm Samanee. If y'all don't know me, I recently graduated in June. Oh no, in May. I graduated in May with a history degree. And I currently work at a startup called Rothy's in San Francisco. So Rothy's makes women's shoes out of recycled water bottle plastic. Super cool company, it's about 100 people. And I basically got the job by convincing the COO to make a job for me. So I'm gonna sort of explain like how that process works and sort of how to do like from like 0 to 1 what the process looks like of getting a job or an internship at a startup. I kind of did something very similarly at Slack. So I worked at Slack last summer, doing product marketing, and kind of weaseled my way in there with like no marketing experience whatsoever, and somehow got the job. So I'll kind of show you just different tactics, different apps I've used, and different like I'll go through everything kind of thing. So, Deb, you want to introduce yourself?
You guys know me, I'm Deb.
So quick agenda. Also, if you can't see the screen or anything, like please let me know in the chat. But I think you should be able to. So quick agenda, we're gonna figure out first what you want to do, but then figure out where you want to do it, how to actually get in front of the right people and cold emailing or warm intros if you have it, and then how to pitch yourself to the company and how you can add value. And then the last half an hour is pretty much Q&A. We'll kind of just like cruise right through this. Cool. So first, figuring out what you want to do. And Deb, just so you can provide a lot of context here. So when applying to like startups, you can't just say, I'm really smart, I'll do anything. That like is absolutely not helpful at all. It's not consulting or finance, where, you know, they do pitch you this idea that you don't need to know like crap and they'll teach you. Startups don't work like that. You actually have to like pick a bucket more or less that you kind of want to like really get good at, and kind of like lean into that. So I kind of listed out more or less the typical roles you would see at a startup. So if you're doing sales, sales you kind of typically see in a B2B company. That's basically like you're talking to people mostly on the phone most of the time and trying to pitch them the product and convince them to buy it. That's sales. Marketing can look many different ways. I tend to do brand marketing, and I've done product marketing before. That tends to be a little bit more creative and like project management based, and you're kind of working with a bunch of different teams to like get shit together, build like campaigns, put it out into the world, see how people like it, and then kind of like constantly reevaluate. And so you're doing a lot of research, creative work, project management, kind of like it's a pretty like cool cross-functional role sometimes. Growth is a subset of marketing. So that's sort of like digital marketing. So that's like Facebook ads, paid acquisition, Google ads. Hi everyone, for people joining. Oh, is there a question coming in? Hold on. Okay, no questions. Everyone who's just kind of joined, we're sort of going through like a full agenda of like what you want to do, or you want to do it, and then how to like get the job. So we're starting off with figuring out what you want to do. And basically at a startup, you actually have to know your function and what value you can add to a company. You can't be a generalist for the most part. Like you actually have to know what bucket you want to fall into. So kind of just like giving a quick description of what each kind of role is. So sales, mostly on the phone, trying to convince people to buy. Marketing is like very project management, building campaigns, doing a lot of creative stuff. Growth is a very technical job. Tends to be a lot of like doing Facebook ads, testing, you're working in Excel most of the time because you're seeing like conversion rates, and there's a lot of like lingo in that. Operations is just like making sure the business is working. So that tends to be like very tedious details, really project management, looking at like why something's not working. Business development is sort of like, I call it like inside sales. So you're not actually trying to pitch a product to a potential customer, but you're trying to pitch like why other companies should work with you and develop like strategic partnerships, but the skill set's pretty similar. Product management obviously is a pretty big one at Brown. Everyone's kind of know what it is. You sit between product and engineer and you sit between engineers and designers, and you're trying to be, you know, build features and products and get it out to the world. Design is also obvious. You're designing. You could be a graphic designer, you could be a product designer, depends on the company. Data is cool, you kind of see that like a little bit more later stage, and that's like a lot of cool information is coming. What do we do with this? You can actually help tell the story of data and like help other decision makers make um, like good decisions, like data-backed decisions, and then software engineering, obviously, you're like helping build a new product. So what I would do when you're at this stage is actually just like Google types of roles at startups, and you can get like a more in-depth description. I've like really gone quickly through it. The way I did it, so I actually tried maybe 4 of these. I've done product management, I've done marketing, I've done ops, and I've done biz dev strategy. And I ended up kind of staying in marketing, mostly because I liked the combination of something a little bit more creative, a little bit more project management based. I got really tired of talking to engineers most of the time, so I actually wanted to stick more to like marketing and designers. And I was very curious about the question of like, if you build it, they will not come. So how do you actually convince people to come and use your product? And I always thought marketing was sort of a way you could answer that question. So that's how I found myself in marketing. But I would encourage you to start to do a little bit of self-reflection, think about previous internships you've had or even roles you've kind of done on campus and see like what parts of it do you really like. Do you like being in the details and doing really, really tedious work? That tends to be like, maybe you're really good at Excel. Like growth is a good spot for that. Operation is a good spot for that. Do you like more like project management based work and not like actually being the person producing something? Product marketing is really good. Product management is really good. Do you like writing? I didn't include that, but like copywriters, content marketers. If you like writing a lot, there's jobs for that. Liberal arts is a great major. You don't need to do a technical degree. I'm a history major, so you can find your way through anything. So that's sort of like figuring out what you want to do. Deb, do you want to add anything to that? Or anyone sort of have any questions based off just that slide? You can like put it into the chat and I can kind of help answer it.
No, I think it's good you mentioned your major because a liberal arts major is fine. And I think most kids tend to think they need a STEM or something like that, and you don't.
No, you don't. And I would also argue, maybe unbeknownst to people, most jobs at startups are non-technical roles. So just like keep that in mind. You just have to kind of pick what specialty you want. I mean, you can look at this list. It's literally like 2 out of 10 are technical. Everything else is like not. Okay, so that's sort of figure out what you want to do. Again, feel free to ask questions. Next is figuring out where you want to do it. This is sort of like fun. This requires a lot of self-reflection and just thinking about the things I've listed here. So things to consider about companies when you're trying to figure out where you actually want to work. And I kind of take a bottom-up approach versus a top-down. Meaning like I'm not looking for just like, I'm not going to LinkedIn and just trying to find a job opening. I'm actually thinking much more critically of like, where do I actually want to work? And then how do I get in there versus the other way around? So first thing you want to think of is industry, what tends to interest you. Fintech is really interesting, health and beauty, apparel, SaaS, ad tech, education, health tech. There's a million things you could be doing. Insurance tech, agriculture tech is a thing now. Just ask yourself like what kind of companies like are interesting to you that you like following, or what products out there are like really interesting to you. We tend to be mostly inundated with consumer-based companies because like us that we're the target market, so we know a lot about like the Glossieres, the Aways, the Caspers. Slack is sort of like a in between. But I would also encourage you to look beyond that. Like there's a lot of really cool healthcare companies like Oscar or One Medical. There's a lot of really interesting fintech companies like Plaid, like Intuit is sort of like a bigger one. I wouldn't call it a startup, but they have cool like smaller startup products inside. So I would just like encourage you just to like think like what are problems, like even think like from a problem, like what problems like bug you. Food shortage is a really interesting one. There's a couple startups that come out of the Bay that are actually like founded by a couple of Brown students called Imperfect Produce. And they built a really cool consumer business out of selling surplus food or food that's about to go bad and turn it into a whole business. So just think about what problems are interesting to you, and just kind of, or the other way is what industry do you really like not want to work in? You can also go that way. I knew I like really didn't want to do like data. Like I didn't want to work at a data company like Segment, for example. It's like too technical for me. I would have lost interest. So if you're not sure where you want to go, you can ask, so where do you definitely not want to go? And you can kind of do cross elimination that way. Next thing you want to think about is stage of company. A 5-person company, very different from 50, very different from 500, very different from 1,000. And this is just kind of good to know about yourself and how you like to be managed and how you want to be working. So if you're working at a company like less than 50 people, that's usually like seed, series A, and that's just referring to like stages of funding for anybody who's not familiar. That's pretty like all hands on deck. It's really chaotic. You probably won't get a lot of mentorship. You're expected to just do, and that's how you learn. You learn by doing. You're not going to be really taught as much, and some people like completely thrive in that environment, but some people like maybe want a little bit more guidance. Once you're going to like 100 to 500, which is the stage I'm at, like departments have been created. There's a little bit more siloing. Like there's a marketing team and a growth team and an operations team. You will probably have like a couple people above you who like could potentially provide you some mentorship, but you're still learning by doing. You have a little bit more freedom, but you have more freedom and flexibility compared to a larger company, but there's more structure than like a company that's less than 50 people. So it tends to be like a really good in-between spot. It's also like a good stage to join if you kind of still want to like test out a couple things. So for example, I'm doing marketing at my current company, but there's a lot of parts of the role that I wasn't like super keen on. And so I kind of pitched like, hey, I want to do a little bit of like UX research and I want to do a little bit of growth. I want to kind of bring that into my job description. And my company was pretty responsive to it. And they were like, if that's what you want to do and like it will help you with your role and you make the case for it, like they're pretty flexible. It's like, and like you see everyone, like the COO, the CEO of my company know me, like, you know, and like you don't get that kind of visibility when a company is like beyond 100 people. So that's kind of another kind of cool part of we call it a mid-stage startup. And then there's late, that's like beyond 500. That's not a startup in my opinion. Uber is not a startup. Lyft is not a startup. Slack is not a startup, but it's not necessarily like giant Google or Facebook. Nothing wrong with those companies, but you just have to know what you're getting yourself into. So Slack was 1,000 people when I joined, and that's like full departments. We have 7 floors of a building, and things are pretty like regimented. You know what your job description is for the most part. There still is like some flexibility and like a lot of cool initiatives are coming about, but for the most part, it's like I had like 3 mentors, a really awesome manager. Like there are people partners, like that doesn't exist at a startup. Like the professional development and coaching and like these like benefits don't exist at a smaller startup. And it's designed to provide you a lot of mentorship and guidance. It's a lot of hand holding, not a lot of freedom necessarily, but it is like a good place to go if you're just like really want to just like be a student for a little bit longer and just like keep learning and have someone sort of just like help you through that. So it's just good to know like who you are, what kind of environment you want to be in. I've done sort of everything. I've done like 5 people. I really didn't like it. It was super chaotic and I didn't think my CEO knew shit. So I like didn't want to be in that environment. I've done 50, which was like a good in between. It was kind of fun. But I wanted like a little bit more structure. So I did 1,000, which is like a little too much structure. So I like found my sweet spot at like 100. So you can like test out what's out there. And then location, know where you want to live is important. Hi, will the slides be available? Yes, they will be available. Deb will share them. So, and also you can feel free to like email me later if you have like more specific questions. I'm like very responsive, always happy to help.
And I am recording this, so the slides will be there. I hope as part of the recording. We'll find out. And as soon as I figure out where and how I'm posting it, I'll let you guys know.
Cool. Location, do you want me in San Francisco, New York? Do you like the idea of commuting to like Mountain View or Cupertino? Like, I don't know, but like location's important. Think about your commute. Think about whether you like winter and snow or not. I hated it, so I moved to California. So, and also like opportunities, right? If you're moving to the Bay Area, you're going to find way more what are called B2B SaaS startups. It's more tech focused. If you're in New York, you're going to find way more D2C, like direct to consumer companies. A lot of brands are based there, like Casper, like Away. tends to be more fashion, tends to be more health and beauty and apparel. And so cities actually kind of dictate what kind of types of startups you'll find. I was trying to find basically a direct to consumer company based in San Francisco, which is pretty rare. They're mostly based in New York, but I was like very gung-ho that I was going to find one based in SF. And I got pretty lucky with my one. So,
and they're also internationally, they're hubs, Berlin, Tel Aviv, Copenhagen's actually starting to become a hub. So they're also the same kind of hub cities in Europe and in Asia and South America.
Yeah, really great. I actually did a 3-month internship in Berlin. Can recommend. It's a great startup city at a quarter of the cost of San Francisco. Would recommend.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah. Places to look. Okay, so now maybe we've created a couple filters. That's basically what you're trying to do, is create some filters, because you can't apply it to every company under the sun. So let's go with me. My filters were, I wanted a direct-to-consumer company. I wanted something between like 100 to 500 people. I wanted something in San Francisco, and I wanted a physical product. That was something that was important to me, and I wanted like really good like leadership and mentorship. So I wanted like really smart people to be running the company. So those are like my filters. Okay, so now how do you actually find these companies? There's no one way to do this. I kind of listed out a couple ways to do it. You can go to AngelList. It's like the hub for startup jobs. I would actually recommend subscribing to their newsletter. They tend to do a lot of listicles, like best femtech companies to join, or like cool companies for new grads to join, or like these companies are hiring right now. They'll usually like post something like that. So it's kind of like good just to get a grasp of what's around there. LinkedIn did a couple, like 100 startups to watch for 2019 and 2018. I would look at that list to see if anything there is interesting. There's another website called the Breakout List. I think if you just Google the Breakout List, they make a good list of like, if you want to join sort of like an early mid-stage startup that like will like launch your career, the whole rocket ship analogy, that they kind of try to curate that. Built in NYC, built in I think it was Colorado or Denver, built in LA. They try to find startup jobs that are not in SF, and they do a pretty good job curating. Crunchbase is a really good place to just search for companies as well. You can filter for like industry, funding, size. It'll pop out a lot of cool companies that you can start looking at. And then the last way I usually would do it is I would look at VC portfolios. So look for the big ones like Sequoia, Anderson Horowitz, Forerunner, KPCB, General Catalyst. If you just go to their website and click the portfolio, you'll see all the companies they invested in. It just gives you a little bit of credibility that like, okay, maybe like a semi-legitimate entity has backed this company, so maybe it won't fail. And there's something to be said about that. And that's like a first round yes is a good one too.
Also, there's a really cool website I just discovered like 6 months ago called Owler, and I put it in the chat, owler.com. And so if you find a company you're really interested in because of what they do, if you put them into Owler, it will list who Owler thinks their competitors are. So that gives you other names, and then it starts looking about size and shape, etc. So that's another good source.
Definitely. Okay, so hopefully by now, y'all have made a very intense spreadsheet with about 20 companies based off all of this research. So now what do we do? And also I want to like emphasize, like this doesn't, take your time with this. It's okay to like take like a couple days, a couple hours. You don't have to do all of everything I'm telling you. Like I did over like months. I didn't do it in like a weekend. And so just take your time with it. It's not the end of the world. And I think another important thing to emphasize is startups actually recruit much closer to when they actually hire you compared to like all the consulting finance companies. So it's very rare for anyone to actually get a job in the fall for a startup. Like incredibly rare. You're gonna usually do it around March, April. So consider like this time right now is just like pure like research and networking. So don't feel like you have to like secure a job right now. You don't. So I just want to make sure people are aware of that. That definitely gave me a lot of anxiety when I was going through recruiting. And it was just like a good thing to remind myself, like, I'm not supposed to have a job right now. It's pretty rare. I got lucky, but like that's not the norm. Okay, so now sort of like more tactical information. And this is like where I wish people taught me. So I'm going to teach all of you how to like stalk people on LinkedIn. So, so we're gonna do like a case study basically. So I want everyone, if possible, if you're on your laptop, like please get LinkedIn up, and we're gonna just kind of walk through this. So I have like my LinkedIn up here. Everyone can see my LinkedIn, right? I think Deb, can you see my LinkedIn? Yeah. Okay, cool. So when you're on your LinkedIn, you kind of go to your search, and I want you to click people. Okay, and then you're gonna go into all filters, click all filters. So let's do an example. I am currently looking at a role at a company called Crunchbase, which basically is like Owler. They basically have a database of companies. And I'm looking for a marketing role there because I'm a marketer. So you have to do two things basically. We're gonna go down and see this current company tab here. You're gonna type in the company you're looking for. So I'm doing Crunchbase. You have Crunchbase. And then you keep scrolling down and you'll see like all the name stuff. So you just go to title and type in marketing. So if we were doing a different role, say we were looking for sales at Slack, we do the same thing. We just type in Slack and we type in sales. If we were looking for software engineering at Notion, for example, you type in Notion and you type in like probably engineering. You want to give like the generic version of it because people put different variations of a title. So like do marketing, do engineering, do product, do sales, like everything I listed there basically. And then you're going to click apply. Let's see who we get.
The other thing you can do is it had schools. You could click Brown.
Yeah, if you're trying to look for alums.
Yeah, to network with.
Yeah, but alums obviously is ideal, but don't feel like it has to be an alum.
Right.
The other useful thing is like once it does the search, if you do have like the alum connection, it will like point it out to you. Like here you can see my shared connection. It will also say like went to Brown. So I'm specifically looking for product marketing. So I was like, okay, so marketing content manager, probably not the person to go to. Marketing ops, probably not the person to go to. They're like not technically the same team, and you kind of want to find the people who are in your team. So I did this a little earlier, so I can see this person. She's product marketing, and I was kind of curious about this one because she was like marketing biomedical engineering. I was like, oh, that's cool. So I go to these people. And you got their name, kind of get like a sense of what they are. She just started, so it's like, okay, that's a good person. And then I noticed, oh, she's the lead product marketing manager. She would probably be my manager. So now I'm like, okay, she's the person I want to get in touch with. How do I find her email? So now everyone, you're gonna go to Google and you're gonna type in Clearbit Connect. So CLEARBIT Connect. It's a Chrome extension. I want everyone to install it right now. And it will kind of look. And I'll kind of just walk you through how it works. But hopefully everyone installs it. Basically, it's a really cool Chrome extension that more or less helps you find anyone's email in the world. It's great. I love it. Another website or extension you can get is called hunter.io. Contact Out is another good one. I am a little biased towards Clearbit Connect, but I use all three when like one or the other doesn't work. Okay, so I'm going to show you kind of quickly how to use it. So we have Rebecca. So we're going to go use Rebecca's name here. Where? Oh, did I get rid of my email? Okay, one sec. Okay, so I wanted to show everyone basically how this worked. Give me one sec, y'all. All of this. Gmail. We can kind of go with this one. Do I have it? Yes, I do. So basically, you're gonna like compose a mail, and then the Chrome extension will be right there. You click like find email. So basically, it's asking you like find the company. So obviously, I've done this. So I have Crunchbase here. Then you set the name. So she was Rebecca. And you can see she's right there. Senior product. You click, and look, it's populated her email. I have her email. Cool. So more or less, you can find anyone's email this way. Even if you can't find their specific email, you can see the email formats, clearly like first initial, last name. So it's a really good tactic just to figure out how to find anyone's email. But oh my God, why do we email them? Okay, so I'm gonna cold email or warm email. I'm gonna kind of show you how to cold. So this was the script I used. It proved pretty successful for me. So the subject was pretty much like quick question for a Brown University student. You're a student, more people are likely to answer you, and you want to just let them know from that. It's just a quick question. In your intro, you kind of just want to give like a quick, like, who are you? So I was like, I'm Samanee, I'm a senior at Brown, I studied history, I finished a product marketing internship at Slack. I said that because that's like my credibility. Brown is not a source of credibility necessarily all the time, but like working at a similar company kind of is. You don't necessarily have to have that. It's totally okay if you just say senior at Brown or junior sophomore, whatever. And then you want to give them like a line that explains like, why are you emailing them? So I kind of said, I'm looking to learn more about marketing opportunities at early to mid-stage startups within, and this was like things I used to just shift out, like the consumer space, B2B space. And I thought, and I think like Crunchbase is a leader in this space, or like for Robbie's, I was like, Robbie's like makes really, really unique shoes, like whatever, like fun tidbit about the company. Okay, ooh. Okay, the second paragraph is very important. This is the important one. So you basically are asking people if they have 30 minutes to chat. You want to tell them this week or next, so you have to create urgency, and you want to give them times, like specific times you're free. You want to like basically remove as much back and forth communication between you and them as possible. So give them like 3 time ranges that you could take a call and make sure it's in their time zone as well. And then after that, you just kind of want to say what you want to ask them. Like, so for example, the person I wanted to email at Crunchbase, she used to be an engineer, like a biomedical engineer. So I kind of want to ask her like, why'd you switch from biomedical engineering to like marketing? How does Crunchbase think about marketing? You know, like it doesn't have to be super fancy. Just like show you did a little bit of research. And then you just kind of end with like, I know you're busy, but you have time to spare. I'd be like really appreciative. I look forward to hearing back.
And if you, depending if you want, now that you have the name of the person, Google them, see what you can find out about them, because it might be something like you went to the same high school they did, a few years apart, or your aunt is their mother-in-law. I mean, who knows what, but there might be some serendipitous connections you don't know about that could be helpful.
Yeah, no, so there was a company I was looking at called Brandless, and their head of marketing was a history major from Brown. So I was like, hi, I'm a fellow Brunonian who also studied history. So you find like anything you can. So that's sort of script that I use. You can kind of just take your version of it. And I think the other kind of useful thing is I basically made this a template. In Google, if you just Google like Google Gmail templates, that way it'll just auto-populate. You don't need to write this every single time, and you just shift out what you need to. Okay, next, some tips. You want to find like 3 to 5 people at each company. So in my case, I have the 2 product marketers, but I might also email like this content marketer who seems he gave off the impression that he's like very open-minded. He like had a giant profile and he seemed kind of interesting. So I was like, okay, he's another way in. So I want to find like 3 to 5 people. You want to, ideally, I like scheduling my emails so I can write them whenever. So Boomerang or Mixmax are 2 really good Chrome extensions that help you schedule emails. You want to make sure the delivery time, so when they receive the email, is Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday at 9 in the morning. So it's first thing in their inbox, and it's not like on a Monday when they have a lot of work to do, or a Friday when they're like zoned out. I am a proponent of email tracking. I know some people aren't, to each their own. I like knowing when people read my emails. And it kind of is useful because sometimes like a week can pass and I just like know they haven't read it for whatever reason. So I encourage everyone, regardless if they've read it or not, and if they don't get a response, to follow up after 1 week. So like the Brown alum at Brandless, she saw my email, but just like it slipped her mind, and I followed up a week later and she responded like immediately. So follow-ups do good responses. And then expect a 20% response rate. Like that's really good. Like most people will not respond and that's okay. That's why you like email a lot of people, like, and 1 or 2 from the company will usually get back to you. So if you're getting a 20% response rate, like you're doing fantastic. So don't be like discouraged if people are just not answering your emails. And then if you're doing a warm email intro, say like Deb knows somebody, you basically want to forward Deb like a really easy email that she can forward along. I don't have my template up here, but it basically was like, hi Deb, thanks again for talking to me. Below is a quick blurb of like who I am and what I'm looking for. And it would basically say something like, Samanee's a senior at Brown, studied history. She has previous work experience at like this, and this company. She's looking to get into this type of role. And these are the things like she's really interested in. So it's just got like a quick like paragraph. And that way it's super easy for Deb just to like forward that along. Yeah. You would also probably attach your resume to that as well. If you want to know how to write a resume, please Google finance internship guide. And somehow my guide is number 1 on Google. I don't know how that happened. So if you Google finance internship guide, you'll get an article that I wrote once upon a time called A No BS Guide to Getting a Finance Internship. In another life, I worked in finance. And if you scroll through that, I have a whole section on how to write a really, really good resume. Thousands of people have used this and it's worked for them. And so I just like recommend, if you're not sure how to write a cover letter or not sure how to write a resume, I would really look at the guide I wrote up. I go into like painstakingly, like a lot of detail and like really stupid humor to make it like not so painful, because I really didn't like finance, but I wanted to help other people get into it if they wanted to. Okay, so that's cold emailing and warm intros. Ideally, if you can, get a warm intro. Don't feel embarrassed to ask people like this is like how the world works. Nepotism is real. Like, use it. So don't feel ashamed to get a warm intro if you can. Okay, how to have an informational call. So hopefully someone's responded to you and you, yeah, so hopefully someone's responded to you and you kind of get the job. So kind of basics, like not longer than 30 minutes, cut the call after that, have about 10 questions on your laptop. Things you want to ask them, like ask them whatever you want and you care about. For me, I kind of was just curious about like what they did, the challenges of the role, what the company is like. I'm very casual in my conversations. So I try to have fun with it and like I kind of go off script. So like just don't be a robot. Like you want to talk to a real person. And I think the important thing is you're kind of trying to figure out 2 things. One is if you like the company and the person, like it's a 2-way street here. And the other is you're trying to figure out like what value you can add to their team. So when you ask about their challenges, you're trying to figure out like, oh, that's something that sounds interesting and I could potentially help solve it. At the end of the call, this is important. This is where you make the whole pitch. At the end of the call, you're basically going to say some version of, really enjoy talking to you, to be like upfront or transparent. I'm looking for like an internship and I really think this company is like amazing, would be a great place to learn. Do you currently have like any opportunities available, or is there anything I could potentially work on? And see what they say. It's a conversation. It could be yes, could be like reach out in like 3 months, which happened to me a lot, or it could be no. If it's no, ask them like what other companies are hiring in this space and get recommendations, keep the conversation going. If it's yes, they'll probably like, oh, send me your resume or whatever. Or if it's like a ask later, like make sure you follow up. Make sure like a month later you like check in and be like, hey, I just saw you like release a new product feature. Doing great. This is what I would do differently, right? You just want to stay top of mind. That's kind of how you have the informational call. And then how to show you can add value. This is sort of like a bunch of different tactics one could use. I've done some variety of all of these before. One thing you could do is after the call, you can use the information they told you and make basically like almost like a mini deck and show them like how you can add value. Like you like pretty much put like the problem as the heading and you'd be like, this is what I would do to like help out and like solve the problem. one thing I did when I was interning or when I was applying to Slack, one of the job description titles was basically like will work on customer success stories, which is basically like customer reviews, but like much longer in like a pretty way. So I basically like went to the Nelson Center and I did an interview with them on how they use Slack. And then I basically created a customer success story for the Nelson Center in Slack's format, and I attached that as my cover letter. And that's how I got the interview. Because otherwise they really they were actually ignoring me. And then as soon as I sent that, I swear within an hour, the recruiter got back to me and said we love that you did this. Like, when can we schedule you for an interview? So, and that's like 2 hours of my time. It didn't take a long time at all. So that's one thing you could do. So just kind of the way I pitch that is like, look at the job description, see if there's something you can already do and just do it and send it to them and show them like, I can do the job. That's basically what you're trying to say. You could do like a 30, 60, 90-day plan of just like what it would look like to work with you. You can do, I don't know, if you want to do like product or design, like maybe you could look at their product basically and just do like a interview with 10 of your friends of like how they use the product and what are like problems with it or like how it could be better. And then you could like package that into a deck and you can send that. So you're kind of sending that to the person who did the informational call with. Or if the application already exists, so if the job opening like actually exists versus you trying to create one, this tactic is more if you want to create a job for yourself. But if the job application already exists, you can kind of send that as your cover letter essentially. Or you can send as your cover letter, and then try to email somebody and be like, hey, here's a deck I did. Like, there's no right or wrong way to do this. Startups tend to also be like much more open-minded to like wacky tactics. So get creative. But I think the main point is you want to show how you can help them, not how they can help you. That's the important thing. If you're not showing them how you can help them, you might as well not bother trying. So I think that's the important message you want to keep in mind. Pretend you're them. Like, what would you like to see? How do you wish people talked to you? How do you wish people approached you? I think just having empathy will kind of set you apart from everyone else. And yeah, that's pretty it. Then you kind of go through the interview process, which is a whole other conversation. But yeah, hopefully the interviews go well, and then you get a job, and you're not startup land. That's basic. But these are sort of like the tactics I use to at least get my foot in the door, because that's usually the hardest part. Once your foot is in the door, then it's just like be prepared, know the company, do your research, and kick ass. So that is all I have to say on the topic. So now it's kind of freeform Q&A. Oh, let me see. I have a question from Carolyn.
Carolyn David has a question.
Yeah, more or less, it's okay. You like want to tailor it to the person a little, but people kind of know what you're doing because they have done this themselves. I think just realize like everything you're doing, they have done themselves. So don't worry too much about that. Just don't write the exact same email. Like, show that you did a little bit of research on the person. So that's what I would say to that one.
Yeah, and that's where you could get stuff from their LinkedIn profile or Googling them a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions people have? Did I go too fast anywhere? Does someone want me? Could you elaborate more on what a good deck would look like? Oh, that's a great question. There's some good examples out there. I could link you to some. So I think more or less want to keep it short and simple. So I wouldn't go more than 4 slides. And basically, I don't know, it's so dependent on what you're trying to do, but like I would keep it short and simple, no more than 4 slides, less text, like not too much text. I will get to your questions, Avari. And you kind of basically want to pitch like the point you're trying to make. There's a guy named Austin Belkak. Hold on, I'm just going to send this to everyone. I want everyone to, so I want people to Google this guy named Austin. He's a really cool guy. I actually know him personally, and he does a lot of really cool articles on like how to find jobs when you don't necessarily have the experience. And he kind of features like different case studies that people have done. So if you just Google like Dropbox case study, Evernote case study, one of my friends named Jason Wan, who went to RISD, kind of did like a Apple case study on Medium that went viral. But he basically like redid Apple Music. That was an extreme version. Like he really went all in, and then ended up getting an internship at Apple right after. You don't need to go medium viral, but but I think like one example I would do maybe is sort of like, say I was looking at Evernote, and I'm looking at like product or design or UX, so they're all kind of fall into the same thing. I would basically like slide 1, like what the feature is. Slide 2 is being like, talk to 10 people, here were the key insights, like love this. Then I would do like a section on like things to work on or things that like weren't really obvious to people, like and so you would write those like key takeaways, and then I would do a last slide like recommendations, what you would change. So like, what are you actually like, where's the value, right? It's like, okay, you're telling me what's wrong, what would you do instead? That's like a really easy 4-deck slide that took no time whatsoever. You could do like Hotjar is a really cool app that like you can check like heat maps and stuff. You can get like kind of fun, you can have fun with it. Slack, for example, was not a deck. That was like literally like a PDF that I attached to my cover letter. It was just literally like one design file. It was super simple. You can send like a Google Doc, even it doesn't have to be a deck. I find decks just like easy because it's just like easy to kind of skim through. But you can send like a Google Doc and just outline like what you're kind of thinking about. That's one way I would do it. We have so does that answer your question? Is that useful at all, Carolyn? Okay, awesome. Carolyn, I would just like literally, I would also just like Google like I'm trying to figure out like what to Google, the terms you can use, but just Google like case studies, like startup case studies, Dropbox case study, Evernote case study, Airbnb. I think somebody did one case study. You get a lot of good examples of what people have done. Okay, we have a question, which is, how would a freshman go about obtaining an internship for the summer or making cold email since you don't have any previous internship experience? So one way you can do that is showing that you're taking initiative while you're on campus. So that can be doing like a freelance or side project, doing something for a club, for example. Maybe you say you need design experience, but you don't have a design internship necessarily on your resume. Is there like a club on Brown that you can do design for?
Design at Brown. Oh, guys, there's also
so
it's called Brown RISD Advertising and Design, something like that, and they do cool design stuff.
Yeah. So as a freshman, I would like, your clubs and your volunteer experience is your work experience. You ultimately just kind of want to prove that you are working on the skills or taking initiative. There's so many online classes as well you can take in your spare time. Obviously, as a Brown student, we're like really fucking busy, and I get that. But I think like you need to do the work. Like the stuff doesn't like happen just like that. It's not given to you on a silver platter. Like I've emailed hundreds of people. It can be a bit of a grind, and like if it ever feels tiresome, please message me. I will like hype you up because I know how tiring it can be. But just use your like clubs, projects even. So I know a lot of software engineering friends of mine would have like little just fun projects they would work on, and that was proof of experience. So that's something you can do. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, and the Design at Brown group. So the website is actually design at Brown, at Brown, I think .com. Just design at Brown.com. And any of the kids that are involved in that can really help you on how to start building up that kind of mini portfolio, whatever, based on stuff you're doing around campus.
That's really cool. Okay, we have a question from Bryce. What's your advice for a first-year non-traditional student with a professional background? Can you kind of explain what do you mean by professional background exactly? Like, are your internships like super professional or what? Can you just like message me privately about that? I'm trying to get like, what's your situation? Oh, I'm doing this. Oh, super cool. I mean, I'm that. I'm a history major. It's a non-traditional major, and I did like everything under the sun. The way I used to pitch it is history helps me like communicate really well and work with large swaths of information and data to simplify complex messages. I don't know. I like would spin some crap all the time. So, but that's to your advantage. Like you're like, how do I say this? You're never at a disadvantage if you know how to tell your story, right?
Yes.
So I think that's the trick. You just need to know like what your story is. And honestly, you're so much more interesting because you're a non-traditional background. People like talking to me more because I was a history major. I had like actually interesting things to say about life. So don't feel like you're at a disadvantage. Just like be able to explain like why your non-traditional background is to your advantage. Like you have a 7-month like job experience. That's huge. Like not many first years have that.
Right.
Yeah, like I had 8 internships by the time I graduated, which is very atypical. But that's okay. I took a gap year and I worked 4 internships, and I like milked the crap out of that. So use every card you've been dealt and like tell that story. And yeah, I hope that's helpful. But basically, like I think it's totally to your advantage. Just like know like how your experience will like make you better prepared and will make you a way better candidate for that role than anybody else. Like that's basically the story you're trying to tell. I don't know your specifics, but like, yeah, we are going to give the slides. Don't worry. Hopefully we'll figure that one out.
I would also say if this is Bright with the 7 months of experience, is that Bright that was asking that? You've got, you're not starting from a traditional or typical freshman position. So even though you're a freshman, your job and work experience are not. You're starting more like as a sophomore, maybe even higher than that. So I wouldn't worry about that because you've got real work experience that's unusual for any freshman to have, or 100%. Sophomores too.
Yeah, 100% agree. Any other questions we can help with, be it like the cold emailing, how to find companies, what roles to do, any quarter life existential crises going on?
Well, we always have existential crises.
Been through it all. Okay. We still have like 10 more minutes. I'm like happy to.
I would also, and I, for those of you that are on that know me, I've said this, use Brown Connect, use the filters on LinkedIn that Samanee showed you. And you can also go to the Brown University page on LinkedIn. But feel free to use the network. I mean, you have this network for the rest of your life. And someday some kids are probably coming to you like you're going to someone else. And think of other networks you have, even through roommates, friends, parents, other jobs, whatever.
Yeah,
and don't be shy. Yeah. Because you've got a unique advantage as a student you're not going to have once you're no longer a student.
Okay, so I've got another question. Okay, so would this work for mechanical engineering in general? Will this tips and tricks still be applicable? Yeah, I think for the most part, yes. Obviously, like it's a case-by-case basis. But I find that like if you're so I'll give a really good example. I actually talked to I don't know if Deb sent her my way or somebody else did, but this girl who's super into trucking. And
Annie?
Yeah. I don't know if she's updated you. There's some huge progress on her.
I know. I talked to her on Thursday.
Okay. I can't remember when I last spoke, but either way, Annie is interested in the trucking industry because it's like, it's really behind, and her family's sort of involved into it. And she's working on a project around that. I basically gave her the same spiel I've given everyone else. And she ended up like emailing, she found like a warm intro from somebody. The guy like fell in love with her, said she can do an internship. He's going to connect her with like more people to do research. So I find that actually it works even better in traditional companies because nobody does this. Nobody's interested in unsexy companies. And so there's no reason why it shouldn't work. You just got to try. I think just like a good reminder is there is no one way to do this. Like you try everything. Some tactics will really work for one person, while another wholesale tactic will work for somebody else. Industries will be totally different. So you just have to like try and see what works, and then just like adjust your system. So hopefully that's helpful. Which I'm keeping track of everyone you reach out to, who to follow up. Spreadsheets.
Oh, Sherilyn, that's a great question.
That's a very good question. Okay, so I had the most intense spreadsheet in the world. So basically, like, it was like company, contact, email. When I reached out, did they respond to me? Did I follow up? Yeah, you gotta get a spreadsheet and just put everyone's info in there and keep track of that. Yes,
There actually, is it Zoho? There are some third-party apps that you can integrate into a Google Sheet that will then, so say like you want to remind yourself to touch base with this person 3 weeks from now, you can put that date in and it integrates in and it'll send you a reminder.
Okay.
It'll trigger a reminder for you.
That's nice. I need that. Okay, so hopefully that helps Sherilyn into the Zabari, your question. I don't even know where my spreadsheet is anymore. I like gave up on it after a certain point because I was like so tired of it. It's tiring. But yeah, just like do what works for you, honestly. Like after a certain point, you will email a lot of people. Just like make the columns that make sense for you, right? The way I did it is not the way you have to do it. I find it's useful to know name, email, interesting facts. So usually if they were like a history major or like something in their profile kind of like was interesting to me, I would make a note of it. And I would just make a note, like a checkbox, like, did I email them? Have they responded back? Have I said it? And then after that, I think I kind of left it alone for the most part. Make the columns that make sense for you. But yeah, how does the intensity of work vary at different size types of companies? What environments are known for being more intense than others? There is no one answer to this. Like roles in the same company can be different. Like I don't work half the time in my company while like our head of product goes to sleep at 3 a.m. I see her sending Slack messages at 3 a.m. It's insane. And she goes home at 7, which whereas like I'm a 9 to 5. So like Glassdoor is a good way to know. I would read Glassdoor reviews of the company you're interested in and try to find the role as well and see like if you're looking at like marketing or engineer or whatever. Glassdoor I think is a really, really good way to figure out like actually what it's like and what the workload is like and what people's like actual thoughts are of the company. I try to do that as much as I could. Or if people knew people at the company, I would try to talk to them and be like, what's your impression? So I would use like alums for that. But yeah, it's so dependent. Like I know large companies like Amazon that completely grind their employees, and like I have friends who work there till 2 a.m. Whereas like Google, equal size, like is a 10 to 4 for some people. So it's so dependent on so many variables. There is no one size answer. But
well, and if you're doing like Wall Street or
mm-hmm.
consulting, you're high paid slave labor. So you're going to be working all the time.
Yeah. So don't do
right?
But yeah, so I hope that answers the intensity. But like different startups are even different. Like startup is such a catch-all term. It tells you nothing. Every company is so individual and so different with such a different culture from each other. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to tell you that. I would try to like read reviews about the company to give you an actual sense of what it's like. So yeah. Anything else? Okay, going. Cool.
Okay, we've got about 5 minutes left. Any other questions?
Yeah, any you can ask really anything. I'm a very open person.
Yeah, you can literally ask her anything.
Or if you can send it to me privately, or you can always like add me on Facebook or email me. Deb will have my email. Like it's Samanee_Mahbub at alumni.brown.edu or brown.alumni. I always forget what I'm at. But yeah, feel free to email me whenever. I'm mostly doing this because I would have this conversation like every weekend. I was like,
yeah, because I keep telling you guys to talk to her.
Yeah. So what is a good question. What's a warm email? So a warm email means the person you're trying to reach out to. So let's use Deb as an example. I don't know Deb, but Zabari, you know Deb. So I'm going to ask you to introduce me to Deb. That is a warm email. That means like Deb, the email going to Deb is coming from a trusted source, and therefore she is much more likely to respond to it. Whereas like a cold email means she has no, like that's just me directly emailing Deb. She has no point of contact. She has no reason to respond to my email. That's a cold email. What do you like about working in a startup compared to, okay, so the question, what do you like working about oh my God, what are my words? What do you like about working at a startup compared to a traditional workplace, long-established business? How do your personality traits or work ethic play into this? Let me know, it's so confusing. No, I understand what you're saying. Pros and cons to both, honestly, because I have done both. Things I like about a young startup is just a lot of flexibility. I have a lot of trust in my company. So like, I don't have to show up exactly at 9. I can kind of leave the office when I want. They'll trust me. I can like just call in sick and work from home, no questions asked. Only 6 hours. People here kind of trust me to do my work. I don't have to be at my desk all the time. I go chill in the basement, or just like, I kind of do whatever I want. As long as the work gets done, people don't care what you're doing at my company, at least. That I also like that I have like a lot of ownership. I do get a lot of visibility, and I have a lot of, I get a pretty wide range of projects. And I also find that because it's a fast growing startup, there's always like new things to do. And if you can like put your hand up and say like, you want to work on that, like people will be pretty accommodating. Things that aren't necessarily great is like, I find that at younger startups, like having a good manager is much rarer, because these are usually like first time managers, and there's no like there's no manager development workshops happening at your company. That's something like my company is still like trying to work on. So I have found that I have to manage up a lot more than I was expecting. And manage up means like I'm managing my manager. That's what the concept is. So like, she doesn't come down with like, here are the ways like we can grow, and here are how we can like progress your career. She's more like, okay, what do you got for me? Like it's so open-ended, which if you like, which is kind of very Brown, right? It's like, you're the architect of your own education. And I find that to be very true at startups. You are very much the architect of your own career. So my job is great or is as shitty as I want it to be. Sometimes that can be a little demotivating, because like you're a young grad and you're just still trying to figure things out, and you're not sure what to do or what you want to learn, and you kind of want a little bit more guidance, and I wanted a little bit more guidance. But then at a certain point I kind of realized like, oh, that might not happen. And so I kind of had to like be more thoughtful and really think about like, okay, what do I actually want to learn? Like, what do I not like about my role, and how can I like make it a little better? So that's something like that pro and con to a startup. But like, I have the flexibility to literally like, work in 3 departments. A girl who was used to be in my team used to split half her time between my team and like international, and now she works full-time international because she just made the full switch. People have moved around our company quite a lot. It's a lot easier to do that at a small startup versus a big company. So there's some pros to startup. Usually a little bit more relaxed, but it depends on the startup. Traditional workplace, long-established businesses, it's just like, you're a number at there's a very defined process and structure and a lot of red tape, and you might feel like really stagnant at times, but maybe you just like want your hand held through the entire thing and not think, which is totally okay. Sometimes like I don't want to think, and it's just kind of nice just like put your head down and work. So that's sort of like the traditional one. But not all big companies are bad. Like, I think it's so dependent on like, you could have an amazing manager at a big company that like really advocates for you and really puts you in front of really cool projects and opportunities. Whereas like at startups, like for better or for worse, you can kind of be stuck doing the bitch work because there's nobody else below you. So you're the one doing it. So I don't know. It's like, it's just so dependent on like what you're trying to get out of the experience. And I find, I don't know, Deb, you have more experience than I do.
No, but I'm just thinking of you in particular, and and I know this is Beatrice. So given you, Samanee, and how I've known you for 5+ years. You're more wired for a medium, smaller size startup than a big corporate. So, and again, you can get a startup-y feel in some big companies and all that, but I think knowing your personality type is really important, because that does definitely play into it.
Definitely. And there's like nothing wrong with either or.
It is. There's nothing wrong. It's just knowing who you are.
Just knowing who you are. Yeah. Like there are times that Deb has recommended big companies to other people. You know, she's not opposed to it.
No, and try it too, because you never know. Worst case, it doesn't work out and you go do something else. Yeah,
I worked at a 50,000 person company. That was an adventure. Would not do again, but that's me. Maybe you will. So.
Well, guys, thank you. We are right on time. I have your emails from either being on my listserv or from filling out the survey. If you didn't do either of those, then send me your email. And by the end of the week, I'm not going to do fancy schmancy editing. We're just going to get this up with the slides and I'll share it out to everybody. And Samanee, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
Okay.
All right, guys, have a good evening.
Thank you.
Bye.